Hello everyone, and welcome to our online worship. It's the second Sunday of Easter. The second Sunday of Eastertide, or it's the 24th of April, and it's 1 week after Easter. 1 week later, Thomas the disciple doesn't believe what his friends tell him. By now, it's not just Mary who's seen Jesus alive. All the others have seen him alive. All 10 of the closest disciples have seen him. Well, Thomas has certain conditions that must be met. No, it's not enough for Thomas to hear what other people have to say. Certain conditions need to be met. Today we're going to hear about doubt and trust, and questions and skepticism and wondering, and yeah, there seems to be room for it all. A reading from John chapter 20. Now Thomas, also called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these were written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. The second Sunday after Easter, and we pick up the story really a week later, and it's not really that surprising that the first encounters that Jesus has with people, now that he is alive and resurrected, they're all stories of doubt and stories of fear and shame. And so following Easter, all the narratives pick up this whole theme of people can't quite get their head around what actually happened on Sunday morning. Now, as we know, because we've just had our Easter celebration, we know that the recap is that Mary went to the tomb and the tomb is empty. Eventually she does see Jesus face to face. She goes and she tells the other disciples, and they say leros. Remember, we looked at that on Sunday. Absolute, utter nonsense, leros. Well, picking up the story, on the evening of that first Easter Sunday, Jesus appeared to all the other disciples. And of course they're overjoyed. They're actually hiding. They're still scared, they're bewildered, they're frightened, they're hiding behind closed doors. And John tells us that Jesus appears with the words, "Peace be with you," which we're not surprised because obviously they need peace. They're terrified that the same thing that happened to Jesus would happen to them. So they're thinking, if Jesus' enemies had him arrested and had him crucified on the cross, we could well be next. No matter what the women are saying, we could be next. So they're hiding, and Jesus comes to them and appears to them. Most of them are there. 10 of them are there. Thomas, the disciple, is not there that Sunday night, that first Sunday night. And so when the other disciples tell Thomas later on, when they see him, and they say that, we met him. He appeared to us. We were all in the upper room. The door was locked. He appeared. He said, "Peace be with you." He's absolutely alive. It's true what the women say. Thomas says, "Well, I really don't care what your experience is unless I see him with my own eyes, and unless I put my finger in his wounds in his hand, and unless I touch his side where he was wounded, I won't believe." That's why he's got the name right, Doubting Thomas. So that was Thomas. I mean, he was pretty adamant that he wasn't, well, he just didn't believe anything anyone said. So a week later, on Sunday, again, Jesus appears to them all. And this time, of course, he appears to Thomas is with them. And he deliberately speaks to Thomas. And he says to Thomas, Thomas, here's my hand, here's the wounds. See my hands, see my side. And John doesn't tell us if Thomas actually touched Jesus' wounds or not. We don't know. That's the mystery part of the story. All we know is Jesus appeared, he looked at Thomas, he said, "Thomas, here's the wounds. Here's the wounds." And as soon as Thomas heard that and saw Jesus, his words were, he just falls to his knees, "My Lord and my God." Now, an interesting thing happens here. Because it's almost like Jesus says to him, "Thomas," and this is what I want to apply to us, this little section here. Because of course, these stories, they begin with the disciples, but they're always stories about us, right? So what happens to the disciples, or the experience of the disciples, there's usually something there that we can apply to. And Thomas is pretty easy to apply because it's about doubt, right? And who in the world has never doubted? In fact, if somebody said to you, "I have never doubted God my whole life, that's why I have perfect peace every day," you would just think, "Oh, away you go." You'd have no time for that, right? Why? Because we know to be human is to doubt. Now, some of us doubt more than others. Some of us have more questions than others. Some of us are more skeptical than others. But I think it's safe to say that everyone, at certain points in their life, go through times of doubt, questioning, wondering, will God help me? Will God come through? Can God truly be trusted in this area? I think it's a part of the human experience, our relationship with God. But here's the thing that Jesus said to him, verse 29. So Jesus puts out his hand. He said, "Here's the wounds, here's my hand." And Thomas says, "My Lord and my God." So really it's a confession of faith. He is believing. He kneels before him. And Jesus says in verse 29, "Thomas, because you have seen me, you believe. Blessed are those who have not seen me and yet believe." So it's like he's saying, "Thomas, you believe me because you got what you wanted, right? You got exactly what you wanted. You wanted proof. And you were pretty specific on what kind of proof you wanted. You said that you would not believe unless you saw my wounded hand. In fact, you even said that you needed to put your finger in the hole that the nail had left. You were really specific, Thomas. You wanted proof. You set down the conditions and you needed proof. And it's like Jesus is saying, that's not really trusting. That's just controlling. That's really not about trusting God at all. That's just about setting down, these conditions have to be met, and then I will trust God. It's like Jesus is saying, it doesn't work that way, Thomas. It doesn't work that way for you, and it doesn't work that way for anyone. Then he says this again, blessed are those who have seen, who have not seen and yet believed. Like, how fortunate are people who don't set down all those conditions that have to be met in order to trust. Because it's almost like they're understanding what it's all about. They're understanding what it means to have faith. Now remember, that word faith and trust is the same thing. So when we're talking about I have faith in God or I believe in God, it's the exact same thing as saying I trust in God. It's the same word in the New Testament. To have faith means, same thing, to trust. So it's like, Thomas, that's not how trust works. If you're going to follow me, if you're going to live your life with me, you need to learn this early on. This is not how trust works. You can't go to God with all these conditions. It would be like us saying, okay, I will trust God, provided I get this particular job, provided this, and I have this other situation in the family that's a bit worrisome, and it needs to be worked out. And God, this is the way I need you to work it out. So if you would do that, and then I have some other little worries, and then I have a friend that needs to be healed, and then I have a little financial struggle, so if you could take care of that, that'd be great too. And here's a few other things. So meet all these conditions, do all this for me, and then I'll come and I'll follow and I'll trust you, Jesus is saying. That is definitely not the way it works. It's like the song, we walk by faith and not by sight. It's like, Thomas, you're putting way too much weight on your physical eyes and what you can see. That kind of proof. That's not what it means to have faith in God at all. Yeah, and the funny thing about Thomas is that he actually did have quite a bit of encouragement that Jesus was alive. I mean, his 10 closest companions had already said it's true. Now, granted, nobody listened to the women, right? But then after the women, then the brothers, they saw the resurrected Jesus. So by now, all the women have seen him, the main closest disciples of the women, all the brothers have seen him, the 10, and Thomas is still saying, no, I really don't believe you all. As Jesus is saying, what more do you need? Your closest people, why would they lie to you? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's like Thomas needed this proof, and it was very, very, very specific kind of proof. Jesus is saying that's not the way that you can, that's not the way to be in a relationship with God. You can't expect God, I mean, it's just a setup for disappointment when you do this sort of bargaining. Now, Thomas was fortunate in a way that Jesus actually did appear and meet him, but there's a little bit of a correction there too, because it's like he's saying, this isn't the way it's going to be. And it's almost like a warning for everyone else that comes after Thomas. You can't set up conditions like this and expect God to jump through your hoops, whatever you think that they should be. It really doesn't work that way at all. And it's a setup for severe disappointment. It's a setup for severe disappointment when you insist that God do things in a particular way and then God doesn't come through, and then you can get terribly discouraged and disappointed and sort of go down into a faith crisis. Yeah, I don't think it's possible to live in this world and not have any doubts just because we're human. And like I said, I wouldn't really believe anyone who told me that they were, completely without their doubts. So I don't necessarily think it's wrong to have doubts. I think it's part of the human experience. I don't think there's anything wrong to question. I don't think there's anything unusual about a faith crisis. I don't think there's anything unusual about wondering, will God really be true to what God says? Will God really be with me in this? I don't think there's anything unusual about that. I don't think there's anything unusual about skepticism or questions or not having answers. I think that's all a part of our process. I don't think there's anything unusual about going through periods of doubt, and they can last a long time. I mean, look at the Psalms. Some of the Psalms are called Psalms of Lament. There's quite a few Psalms in the Old Testament that are called Psalms of Lament, and basically they're songs about how horribly discouraged the writer is, the singer-songwriter is. It's like, for example, if you take Psalm 6, it says, well, here's a line from Psalm 6. This is a Message translation. It's like, God, if you love me at all, get me out of here. You ever felt like that? God, if you love me at all, could you please do something about the situation? The psalmist says, I'm tired of this. He says, my bed is soaked with tears. How long do I have to keep on crying? How long do I have to keep on asking you? If you care for me at all, would you please do something? It's in the Psalms. There's quite a few of them. I think it's common that people go through times where this is their experience. Because our faith life, our relationship with God is like every other part of our life. It has its ups and downs. When you think about your life, whether it's your life in your job, or your life in the family, or your life in your marriage or your partnership, or your life with a friendship, there can be some real highs and some lows, can't there? I mean, it's not always just, life isn't just always getting better, 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 better. No, it doesn't work that way, does it? It's sort of like this, valleys and hills and valleys and hills. How common is it to be in the valley? Well, pretty common. Right? Jesus even said this. Yeah, in the world you'll have trouble. Yeah, so being in the valley, yeah, common. And when you're in the valley, for whatever reason, that can have an effect on how you think about everything, including yourself, your circumstances, and God. And that's where we get into areas of doubt sometimes. Will God really help me here? Can I trust God with this? Can I release this to God? Can I release this and not have to carry it alone? Or, that's the area of doubt. Well, I think one of the lessons that we learn from Thomas is that he doesn't stay in the place of doubt. In fact, tradition has him moving on to being the first one that took the good news to India and established the church there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the tradition, that he actually went on to be quite the evangelist, quite the teller of, or the bringer of the good news to many, many, many people. So obviously that was a point in his life. He was low, but he didn't stay there. So I think that one of the lessons that we can learn from Thomas is that you know, when he did see Jesus face to face, it was like, and I wish we could know how he said it, but John records it as my Lord and my God. So it's like, almost like he's saying, of course, yes, I see you, I recognize you for who you are. I see it now. You know, he gets that epiphany, that aha moment. And like I said, John doesn't tell us if he actually did touch Jesus' wounds. I suspect he didn't have to. I think that sometimes the things that we think we need, like Thomas thought that he needed to touch Jesus' wounds, sometimes I think that we think we need certain things, and that's really not what we need. God knows we need something else. So who knows if Thomas ever did touch Jesus or not. But I'll tell you something from my own personal experience. And because, you know, everybody would say, well, that was really a high point in Thomas' life. I mean, he actually got to see Jesus face to face, which is something we've never had to do. But this has been my experience, that no matter what amazing thing happens in your life of your relationship with God, you and God, let's say you do go through a time where it's like, oh wow, what an amazing thing happened this weekend. There's no way that could have happened unless God were in it, right? Many of us have had these experiences. We've gone along and we think, yes, that was a really hard time, and there's no way I could have gone through that unless God was with me. Or there's no way this would come to pass unless God were with me. And there's a moment of rejoicing, isn't it? However, what I've noticed is that 6 months down the road, 6 years down the road, it's very easy to forget all the good things that God has worked out and given you in some way, because years later, you can still find yourself in that place of doubt. So what I'm suggesting is that just because Thomas saw him face to face for that day, for that moment, that's not going to be enough to sustain you your entire life. It's not enough. I mean, for me, I could see myself second guessing it in 6 months, saying, did I really actually see Jesus face to face? Or maybe it was my imagination, or maybe I don't remember it. You know what I mean? I think we can forget. I think we can forget the wonderful, good things that God gives us because fear gets in the way. And then when fear gets in the way, we can't really see anything. You know, it's almost like we need God to help us to see clearly so that we can walk by faith and not by sight. And that's the prayer. That's the prayer. That's the heart cry of the text here. One of the lessons that Thomas teaches us. He doesn't stay doubting. Yes, he visits the place of doubt, but he doesn't stay there, and it's the same for us. There's times, yeah, it's fine to doubt, it's time to question, but there are also times, and you'll know when it's the time, that you have to leave that behind and just push ahead in faith, do what you need to do, take the risk, because you're walking by faith and not by sight. Amen. Nothing can separate still make mistakes, but you have new mercy for me every day. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, 'cause I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Wind is strong and water's deep. I'm not afraid here in these open seas. Your love never fails. The chasm is far too wide. Never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, 'cause I know that you love me. Your love never fails. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You stay the same through